Welcome back. Several individuals were arrested for illegal entry into St. Lucia on Friday, even as the country attempts to enforce protocols to manage COVID-19. The arrests were made during a joint operation between the Marine Police and Territorial Police Friday morning.
They incept two separate joint operations, that is with the Marine Unit and Territorial Police, Land Police. We were able to intercept in these two instances, two vessels coming in from Matnik. Those vessels, the persons in each instance, we had four persons on board. Those persons in both instances were arrested.
The vessels involved were impounded. The Deputy Commissioner of Police also informed that civilians continue to flout the protocols at bars, causing police to have to step in.
There have been instances where at least 15 persons have been found in bars that are closed from the front, but the back door is either halfway opened or persons are inside carrying out activities. Now, you'd realize that as part of the protocol, bars were only supposed to have been opened up to 4 p.m. daily, and bars with grocery shops or restaurants and so on had to be, the closure time was 9 p.m. We have had instances where at 11:45, almost midnight, police have to be closing bars. This, I believe, it is not in compliance with what we are trying to achieve.
That was Deputy Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy. Massey Stores says stigma and discrimination has been leveled at employees following revelation that the company has been impacted by COVID-19. On the 19th of November, the company released a press statement stating that employees had contracted the virus but did not divulge which of its outlets had been affected. On Friday, Managing Director of Massey Stores St. Lucia, Martin Dorville, chided those who are discriminating against staff, saying that no one should be treated in such a manner.
We pride ourselves on the critical role we play in feeding the nation and have spared no effort in ensuring the safety of our operations, with very strict precautions in place to be able to responsibly fulfill our role as an essential service provider, especially at this time. We are extremely proud of and grateful to our team members who, in spite of their own fears and concerns about COVID-19, have, over the last 9 months, served St. Lucia with distinction, enduring the psychological stress and navigating through some very, very challenging periods to come out and serve.
Dorville says the discrimination, which has been recorded in several places, including well-known stores, on buses and the streets, is disheartening and needs to stop.
I want to again reassure the public that the health and safety of all Massey operations, and by extension that of our cherished team members, loyal customers, supportive suppliers, and all who operate within our premises, is our number one priority. Our measures are aligned with the World Health Organization's and local health guidelines. We work closely with and under the guidance of the Ministry of Health, and we continue to adjust our approach as necessary. All of this in an effort to have all of our operations remain as low risk as is reasonably possible.
The company has indicated that those who tested positive for COVID-19 were placed in isolation by health officials, while individuals who were identified as close contacts were tested and quarantined as required. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet insists that the aim of the state is not to implement more punitive measures on the citizenry during this COVID-19 fight, but he says the matter is unavoidable. New officers, COVID-19 wardens, have a pivotal role to play, according to the Prime Minister. The group of individuals, many of whom had previously applied to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, have been recruited and will receive training to help ensure enforcement of COVID-19 protocols.
We're not seeing a sufficient level of adherence to the protocols. Many St. Lucians have taken up the call and are practicing the necessary protocols, but there's still too many of us who are not doing that. And so the enforcement officers will be out. Their recruiting, as you've heard, is already begun, and I'm hoping that certainly within a week or so that these officers will be out.
The Prime Minister says the action of the citizenry over the next 2 weeks will determine whether the government can walk back some of the stringent protocols.
I'm really hopeful that in the next 2 weeks that we'll continue to see the numbers trending in the right direction, and that with the enforcement officers out, that we now can feel that we can maybe lax some of the rules that we currently have. Because if in fact we had adherence to the wearing the face mask, many of these protocols that we've put in place would be unnecessary. So we do know that we can coexist with COVID, but it does require 100% participation in the protocols.
Prime Minister Chasney touted the protocols has been quote-unquote incredibly successful. He pointed that the tourism sector has been able to remain open without incidents of tourists infecting locals. The excitement about the reopening of the UK's borders and recommencement of British Airways flights to St. Lucia was also evident on the Prime Minister's part. The St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association has joined the conversation regarding mandatory second testing. The president of the SLMDA says the views within the association vary. However, the matter of second testing does not just hinge on medical professionals saying yes or no. Genevieve Gonzague has more.
In October, Barbados implemented mandatory second testing for all travelers to Barbados. Ever since this announcement and a statement by Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley that 95% of the people testing positive in Barbados are testing positive on the second test, many St. Lucians have begun advocating for the same to be done here. The St. Lucia government argues that tourists move within a bubble here on island and are not allowed to roam free. The St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association has joined the conversation. President of the association, Dr. Merle Clark, says the opinions of the membership of the SLMDA are varied.
So whereas the CDC is now recommending for travelers multiple tests, up to 3 tests, what you'd find is the Pan American Health Organization is asking to not hinge your strategy specifically on testing. That adherence to protocols has to be the principal factor. When it comes to the subject of a second test in St. Lucia, as I said, there are varying views. So with a second test, and again, it would be determined if a second test were to be done. Is it a rapid test, an antigen test, an antibody test, or would it be the gold standard, the PCR test? So as per the Barbados model, which is touted a lot, certainly, that test is done on day 5. So many things need to be known.
Dr. Clark says the Barbados protocols and that of St. Lucia differ completely, particularly when it comes to non-nationals. Therefore, she says, the rationale behind not needing a second test for visitors, particularly if they will not be spending more than 7 days in St. Lucia, is understandable.
The rationale for a second test, as per the ministry's perspective in part, is you do a test on day 5, hypothetically, and the guest leaves on day 7. So once you get your results, say within 24 hours, by that time that guest would have, say, 1 day left to stay. Then you isolate for that period. The other issue is, of course, a negative test does not always mean that you're negative. It may be negative at the time. It gives a picture of what happens at the time, that there's so many factors and variables when it comes to testing.
She says there is no hard and fast way to get out of the COVID-19 situation. Dr. Clark noted that emphasis needs to be placed on the adhering to the health and safety protocols. She says, regardless of what is done, there will continue to be risks associated with COVID-19 as the virus is new and continues to evolve. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
And Genevieve took to the streets to hear your views on the matter.
The debate to have second tests done in St. Lucia, similarly to what is being done in Barbados, continues. With many arguments supporting both for and against, we took to the streets for your opinion. Do you think there is a need for a second test to be administered to people coming to St. Lucia?
I don't believe corona exists. I believe it's just the big heads of the world trying to make money on their vaccines. And second testing in St. Lucia, I don't even see a reason for it if corona don't exist. But then we have to follow what the bigger heads say. You know, so we wear our mask, we do our testing, and if that's what they say to do, then we have to do it.
The answer is yes, okay? If, let's say, like the country is like a family, your home, okay? You have your children and they are safe, all right? Everything was going okay. Your children are safe. Somebody else from a different household coming to your house. You have to protect your children against them. So you have to investigate them, make sure that if it's you have to carry a first test, second test, third test to make sure that before that person come and infect your house, that you have to check them.
I think there is a need. The reason for that is when you are tested back in your home country and you come to St. Lucia, sometimes you may get a negative test up there. It shows negative, but then when you come here, you may get a test that says positive. So I think it's important, you know, to have a second test.
Yes, I feel there's a need. All other countries doing it, but look right now we're number 2. And if any Americans come to St. Lucia, when they go back, they go back to testing. So we need to do second testing.
Sometimes the people you test the first time, sometimes they have it and you don't get the result one time. And then when they get the test the second time, you understand, they get the positive. You understand? So I think it's okay to test them a second time.
And that's what you had to see. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Thank you, Genevieve. You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more coming up after the break.